Creek, especially after some of y'all last night being out. You made it here, and I appreciate you. And we're gonna talk about this thing that we call the Gentleman's Square. We got some great presenters and some brothers that's gonna talk to you. But right now, I'm your host, Rasan J. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about how we got to this point where we're sitting here right now and what the Gentleman's Square is all about. Tell you a little bit about myself, where we've been, where we at, where we trying to go. Y'all good? All right. I know we got a lot of other brothers coming in. I mean, we expect about, I don't know, upwards of 40. So, you know, people will be coming trickling in. So just watch out for that. But Rasan J. So a little bit about my background. I am from the East Coast area. I grew up in Philly, Jersey area, then moved down to DC 2000. Lived down here for about 15 years. Then got married, had children, did all that stuff while I was out here. Ended up transitioning over into Houston, so that's where I'm at now. But officially, this is home for me. This is home, this DC area, all my people are here. And I bring that up and say that because it factors into why we're here right now, how we came back to this point. But gifts and talents. And I'm gonna kind of speed through my part just to make sure we get other speakers and everything's going on. But this is interactive, so if at any point we got questions, y'all wanna bring something up, let's talk about it. We are gonna have a little panel discussion at the end, so you can also wait until the end if you wanna bring anything up, and we get through all of our talks and presentations, and then we'll get to that point. So again, a little bit about me, gifts and talents. One of the things I realized early on are my gifts and talents. You know, for me, the talents are the things for you. It's the things for me, the things that is going to help my career, it's going to help me develop and grow. It's the things that I do for me. And one thing I learned, I'm a man of many talents. I ain't even going to be shy about it. I learned that I could do a lot of things and was able to do a lot of things. And I use that to help me propel in my career and move forward and do some other stuff. But then what I also learned is some of my talent or my gift. And what I determine as a gift is the thing that's given to you that you give to the world, you give to everybody else. And everybody has gifts and talents. For me, my gift I found was connecting with people. I am a people connector. I am a people's person. I was always the one that had people getting together. I had the parties, I had all that. But I realized that was a way to give back. When I could bring people together for whatever the reason was, you know, if we were just partying, if we was hanging out, it was time for a fellas trip, it's time to do something. I was usually the one like, I might not plan everything, but I at least be the one that initiated and get everybody else going. So I always kind of wrote that off as just like, oh, it was just something I did. And it wasn't until later in my adulthood that I realized that was what was given to me to give back to the world and bring people together. So I started using that and putting different things together and figuring out how I was going to use that to set my mark, if you will, or further give back. And that kind of led me to, when I say the road to the square, and where we are now, coming together as men and trying to develop and build each other up and do all the things that we need to do to progress in life and push forward to the next generation and so on and so forth. So a little about the agenda, we'll talk about the backstory of why and how I got to even thinking about trying to bring forth what we call the Gentleman's Square, you know, about the G Square, the purpose, the mission, and what that's all about. This weekend, the Relax and Fine, we call it Relax and Fine weekend, we'll talk about that. And then where we see we're trying to take this now. So for me, it was three things that if I could point to anything that really changed how I view the world and how I look at things, it was the Million Man March, men's meetup, and this movie called 10,000 BC. So with the Million Man March, I don't know how many brothers went to the Million Man March back in '95. Very powerful experience if you were there. If you were able to actually be on the ground and see this group, this mass swell of men from all backgrounds, ethnicities, and cultures, and just coming together for a common cause. Now, some of us came because we didn't know what that cause was. We just knew that we needed to do something. We knew that we needed to focus our mind and kind of have a shift in thinking and what we were going to do not just for ourselves, but for each other. I think that was the biggest takeaway from that. It was us finally thinking as a collective, at least for this generation, of how we were going to do things to move our communities, our families, and everyone outside of just ourselves forward. So just seeing that as a college student, young man, just ready to come out into the world, it really made me go out as an adult into the world with just a different perception and different thinking of what am I going to do to give back? How am I going to develop myself, but in the context of something greater than me, something bigger than me. Then in 2001, right after we moved to DC, boys, kids, now all of us, there was another cat that invited us out. I don't know if you were there. No, because I'm not sure. But I'm trying to put you in the story, but I don't know if you were there that day.
I don't think so.
So it was this one cat, and he just invited us out to BT Soundstage or something like that. Some restaurant. I was like, I just want to get together. It's going to be a regular guys get together. That's cool. There's probably about 8, 9 of us showed up, 10. And we were just chatting, chatting it up for a while and everything. Everybody's gathering. Then he finally gathered us up and was like, I brought you here because, he had lost his father a couple of years ago. And he said he went through a stint where he kind of went through a depression, went through a moment where he looked up and he realized, damn, I don't have a men's circle. He was like, he realized his father was his best friend. He's like, man, I would go to him and talk to him about all kind of stuff. And then when I looked up later after he was gone, he's like, I didn't have anybody to talk to. So he's like, I got friends, I got boys, but having deeper discussions, he was like, I don't have that. So it was like, once that happened, the discussions in the room totally changed. Like other cats started talking about the relationship with their father, their kids, and what they want to do. And it was just like, the floodgates opened up. And what that kind of let me know or realize was like, men will talk. A lot of times they say, oh, men don't express themselves, men don't do this. It's not that. I found that men need a certain permission. We need permission, like, especially amongst other men, for whatever reason, we need permission to be vulnerable. We need permission for you to say, it's all right, it's cool. You're amongst friends, you can do that. So that conversation sort of turned into that, and we had 1 or 2 of those meetups, and then it kind of fell off. So I was like, try to revisit it later. Nobody really got it going. And what that showed me is, number one, it's a great space to have that men need it. But 2, it showed me that if you're gonna do it, you need to formalize it a little bit, because otherwise it's gonna fizzle and you're gonna be at square one. So the last thing that really changed my way of thinking and put me on the path was this movie 10,000 BC. Now the movie sucked, don't get me wrong, the movie was trash, but there was this one line in the movie that just set it off for me. And to paint the picture, this movie is 10,000 BC. It's like this prehistoric era and all this. And the king of this village or tribe, early in the movie, he goes off, he disappears. He went to do something. That's all we knew. Then his son comes up. Now he's a young man. He's growing up. And he has an anger for his father because father left. He never knew why. He just left the village. He left the tribe, left his responsibilities behind. And then there's the other character who's like his father's right-hand man. And he pulls him to the side, he pulls his son to the side, and they're having this back and forth. And then he says this to him. He says, a good man draws a circle around himself and cares for those within, his woman, his children. Other men draw a larger circle and bring with it their brothers and sisters. So I number these 1, 2, 3, 4, and I just want to stop at that first part and kind of look at that. And that's a lot of men, right? A lot of men, they draw a circle around themselves. It's not selfish, but they look out for them and what they have going on. We had a lot of discussion yesterday about family, legacy, and marriage, and all that, and to be or not to be or whatever. But the one thing we have to look at is the circle you're drawing around yourself. Are you just drawing a circle around yourself and just being all about yourself, which is fine, but what are you giving back? What is your responsibility to give back? Then the other part, he talks about some men draw a little larger circle, and those are the people who look out for their family, their friends, their immediate friends and family. They have a little bigger circle. They said, but some men have a great destiny. They must draw around themselves a circle that includes many, many more. Some people realize I gotta go beyond there's something greater than me. And I challenge everybody to think about the circle you're drawing around yourself and how big is that circle. And you're only limited by yourself. You can make that circle as big as you want, but you definitely should go beyond just yourself. Then the last part, he says, your father was one of these men. You must decide for yourself whether you are as well. Now those two parts I broke up because one is your father was one of these men. Now we all have heard of like sins of the father, right? Some of us, maybe a lot of us in this room have grew up without the father in the home. And we have a certain anger or frustration, or we have something built up that we're carrying from the past, the sins of the father. When he says your father was one of those men, now in this he's talking about your father was a great man, but that could have been anything. Your father was something. It doesn't have to be you. What he says, you must decide for yourself whether you are as well. When that you are is you going to be a great man? Are you going to be what you feel like your father was? Are you going to carry on the sin of the father, or are you going to be your own man? You have a choice, and I think a lot of us as men don't realize that we have the choice to make for ourselves. We don't have to carry that on. We can be something else, we can be something greater, or we can be as great. But we got a choice. But anyway, that really had made me think, that stuck out to me, and I kind of carried on mainly about the part of the circle. And I knew at that point I wanted to create something. I wanted to create for myself a circle that was much bigger than just myself. And be one of those guys, I'm not a great man, but starting there and doing what I can. So that's sort of how, the beginning of the Gentleman's Square came about. 2020, y'all know we went through. We had COVID going on. We had everything happening. We were isolated, went through the whole period. You're in the bubble. And I used to do, like I said, I'd get people together. So in my neighborhood, I would do like men's nights and just have some of the neighbors come over. We used to do that for a while. For a couple of years, we had it going on. So when 2020 happened, we weren't really getting together, so I started doing these set of virtual joints for them. And after that, brothers were like, man, I really like this. I really appreciated that. And it was just getting the neighbors going, getting them on the chat, talking, going back and forth. So I said, man, I want to do something like that for my boys. I mean, these are all great, but my circle, my group. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, Gentleman's Square, that sounded like a good name, whatever. Put all that together, and then I was like, well, I'm gonna put it out to the masses. This is later, like 01. I didn't know what it was gonna be. I didn't know what it looked like. I just knew I wanted to do something. So I hit a couple brothers up, like, hey, I don't know what I'm trying to do, but y'all wanna come out and talk about it, and we can figure it out. One of them brothers was Chad. Man right here came out. A couple other brothers not here, but tell him, he like, hey, let's do it, whatever. Chad was like, well, let's just figure it out as we go along. Let's just meet up and we'll figure this thing out as we move along. Let's just start there. So we started meeting, just having meetings. A couple of us started like Top Golf. Matter of fact, one of our first joints, Top Golf, and it was just like it went from there. Then I was like, man, if I'm out in Houston, all my folks is back here. So I'm like, I want to have something to pull them in too. So I'm like, you know what? I want to do something that's away, that gets us away. I want a time with my boys, my crew, my circle. So I was like, what if we just plan something away? So we did this weekend. Our first one was in 01, put something together in Tampa. It was like, well, I got Texas folk now, and I got East Coast folk, and I got folk in Philly. I said, we're going to go somewhere. I just spun the globe and was like, all right, Tampa, we're going to go. I don't know who coming, but I'm going to put it out there to the masses, and we're going to see what happens. Folks came out, brothers answered the call. They came down there, put the weekend together, summit. We had a great time, much like this week. After that, started formalizing. Wow, this was great. This was a great weekend. It was just a weekend like this that had a little bit of structure, but the formulation of the Gentleman's Square didn't really have a structure yet. Remember I said, if we're gonna keep this thing together, it's gotta have some structure, gotta have some formality. I still didn't know if it was going to be a nonprofit? Is it gonna be for-profit? Is it gonna be a 501c7? What is it gonna be? I don't know. But it's gotta have some reason. It's gotta have some formality to it. So came up with the mission, came up with the core tenet. Essentially, these lead back to the development of men. Men supporting men, coming together, trying to be the best versions of ourselves. And however we do it. And the purpose of our weekend is, we get into the gentleman breakdown, but the purpose of this weekend, I tell the brothers, I keep reiterating, this weekend is for you. This is your weekend. This is not about, we want to curate stuff and we want to have things going on, activities that you can be a part of and things you do, but really this weekend is about you. It's about your opportunity to get away, to break away from the wife, from the kids, from work, from everything. That's why I try to encourage people to take days off. That's one thing we don't do is, we don't take our self-care time seriously. Women do it all the time. Women take their retreats. They take off, they have mental wellness days, whether it's in town, whether it's whatever. But we don't do that. We don't take time just for ourselves. Because, man, we feel like we got to be on all the time. We got to be hustling. We got to be working. Man, you will work yourself into a grave. You will work yourself into a grave. And then you'll look back from above and look at all the things and opportunities you missed out on. And sometimes you got to take a break just to appreciate what you've done. Just to appreciate that. Take a moment, step back, take the weekend, recharge. Look at what you've done, plan for the future, where you want to go. So that's really what this weekend is all about. And from out of that, we want to develop what I call the gentleman. And it breaks down. Y'all got cards on your table. That's the breakdown there. And all these attributes, so we can talk about it later. But ultimately what it comes down to is, no matter what your age or where you're at in life, there's somewhere further that you can go. Monty talked about it yesterday during our discussions that at 50, sorry, I didn't mean to put them years on you, brother. But at 50, he's constantly trying to challenge himself. He does running, does long distance running, does trail running, but he's constantly trying to challenge himself and say, well, man, if I can do that at 50, what can I do at 51? Well, if I can do that at 51, what can I do at 52? And I think we need to be the same way for whatever we're doing in life. If I'm doing this at 49, 44, whatever, what can I do next year? And how can I be greater and how can I develop? That becomes what I deem the qualities that get you there are in that acronym of the gentleman. So like I said, we can talk about that later. But just the most important part of this weekend, when I was initially trying to explain it, even now when I try to explain to people about the weekend, it's like, and when I came with the name, it's like, it's not a retreat. It's not a retreat, but at the same time, it's not a fellas weekend. When I think about a fellas weekend, we all done them. It's when you go out to town or whatever, you get with the boys, and it's a turn up. It's a turn up. Well, it's not really that. And the retreat is a lot of what we did yesterday, where we really do the round table discussion, square table discussion, whatever we want to call it. And we open up, and that's that safe space, that's that vulnerable place that we want to be at in order to learn more about ourselves and grow and help the next man. So we want to combine those and create something that's allowing everybody to come together, build and develop and share. I think this sums it up, as far as the Ecclesiastes. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe unto him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. That's a lot of what my man Nate felt after his dad passed. He didn't have that circle of men. He didn't have that core group. He had friends, but he found that, man, when I fall, who's going to lift me up? So when I tell people, about the event and come out, and they're like, well, I tell them it's not for everybody, but it's for your right-hand man and your left-hand man. You grab two people up and you bring them. That's those two people that when you fall, that's who got you. Them people should be sitting here with you. Them the ones. So the next one, the people that you can tell about, and they're going to say less. Say less. What you need me at? them the people that this weekend is for, because what we want to create in the long run is a lattice of connectedness. So when you talking to this man and you say, well, who invited you? He say, this man invited me. You like, oh, okay, he good because I know him, rather than some randoms come in. So it's really a grassroots growth kind of thing that we are looking to do, because we want to know that you're a man that's properly vouched for. We can talk about this later. I know some of the imagery that we send out, it all has meaning, right? So you'll see a lot of the chest, the cigar, the cognac, but it's not what the weekend is about, right? All those things have representation, whereas chess is all about strategy. It's supposed to be representation of life, how you move in life. The cigar has always been a representation of manhood and exquisite taste and masculinity and power. Then the cognac, same thing, luxury, refinement. We want people that are on their path. And not to say that there's not other brothers who aren't trying to do that and trying to be there. We want to come together and help figure out collectively how can we be better so that we can help other brothers be better. So this is not a group about, the bourgeoisie. When you see that, it's not about, we're all about the high class lifestyle. We're not about spending. We're not about all that. We're about refinement, betterment, masculinity, and development of the self. So this was some of our first one we did. I talked about in Tampa. We had some great brother speakers. We had, of course, Dr. E. We had Chad, who was speaking today. And, we had a great time there in Tampa. So how we get here today is because, like I said, go back to the initial point of, in order for it to grow, I knew it had to have formality, right? So develop formality, develop with these brothers to help. But it's supposed to be in between a fellas weekend and a retreat, right? Somewhere in between. And that's why we do the summit on Saturday, to give it that formality. Well, the first one was in Tampa. We had about 17 brothers. The second one was in Houston. We had started dwindling. We didn't have a summit that time. We had the blueprint the first time, then we kind of dwindled. We didn't have the summit that time. Kind of fell back, maybe 12 brothers. Then we were like, we tried to go out the country. Hey, we're gonna do it big. We went out the country, tried to do it in Colombia. It quickly devolved into more of a fellas weekend. As you can imagine. It turned into a fellas weekend, which, wasn't the right way to go, right? That's all we're gonna say about it. That's all we're gonna say about that. So it started getting away from what it was supposed to be about. Brothers still built. We still had our meetings. We still got together. We still had deep conversations. But it was a little too much fellas weekend in there, which is fine, but it wasn't the gentleman's square weekend. It wasn't the relaxing and fine weekend it was supposed to be. So this year, it was like, I hadn't even started playing, but I knew I needed to get it back on track. And like I said yesterday, a lot of times what we don't do as men is we don't ask for help. We'll try to take it on, we'll try to tough it out, whatever it is. I reached out. I was like, look, I need accountability. I need to make sure I get on the right track. Reached out to Dr. E, reached out to Keith. Look, I need help. I want to plan this. We'll put this together. I need y'all involved. If nothing else, just keep me accountable. Do what you can. And them brothers jump right on. Rob brought in Black, Alfred, added to the group, and they jumped on it. And I said, all right, well, what you trying to do? And that's sort of how this presentation came about, because I was trying to explain. I'm like, man, I need to write this stuff down. I need to get it out visually. Put this together, present it to them, give them a clear understanding. And I said, I want to bring it back to here. This is sort of like the genesis, and that's why I appreciate everybody being here, because being from the East Coast, I said, all right, we want to have another one, but this time we're not going to take it away. We're going to start right back at home, and we're going to start our growth from there, and then we're going to build off of that. So you all are part of that rebirth, genesis, as we redo this thing and grow it and develop it in the right way. And what that development looks like to me I say I got a 10-year plan for it. But this is a collective. And it's a couple things as we had a notepad on the table, because it's a couple things we'll talk about later that I want all y'all to have input on and drop your vote on. One of the things we did is I talked about the earlier ones. We had one in Tampa, we did Houston, went out of country. Now we came back to DC. And of those, we did three different times a year. First one was in September. Second one we did was in March time frame, another March, and now we're going June. So a part of the formality is we need to establish, everybody knows, every year, this was going on this time of year. So, whatever that looks like, is it gonna be, we'll put out options there, is it gonna be, should it be in the summer, that June, should it be in the March? Everybody got their different opinions about it, but I'd like us to vote on that. We'll show you that later. And the second thing is, a couple locations. But getting back to the numbers, you can see, we started falling off, but with this rebirth, started getting back on schedule. Starting to get back there, and actually, we did more than 35, I think we were just under 40, which is amazing. The top number I put out there to these fellas, they said, well, what you think about now? I said, my top number would be great, we could do 60. So that was the top, so y'all talking about, we did almost 2/3 of that, which is great. And that's just off of the strength of, again, we go back to grabbing your mans. This is not putting it out there to the masses. This is just everybody here has an interconnectedness. So moving forward, we want to have a 10-year plan. This being the 4. So come by 10 years, this is what it looked like. And we can play with those numbers based off of what we had this year. But I seriously would like this to be a brotherhood that grows nationally. And again, however it looks, develop, but it's something that I think every brother needs. And we could develop it and present it in a way that is, powerful enough, it gives value, then it should be something that grows. So the other thing I like us to vote on is a lot of different places we can go. A lot of different places, location-wise, we could be at. What do y'all think? Here's some options, but what does the committee say? What do y'all think? Let's put it out there, let's put it to the vote, and see where we go from there. But that's sort of how we got to this point. This is what it's all about. It's sort of abbreviated, but that's the vision. That's the vision moving forward. And, that's what it looks like to me. But it's like a baby now, y'all the village. And what I'm doing is, I done birthed the baby, I'm putting it out there. So, as we talk, I'm just the vessel, you know what I mean? That's why I say I'll put it out there, because some of these things I want everybody else to have input on. I want my vision to become your vision and take it on, because like they say, one monkey don't stop no show. So I want something that lives on, and however it lives on, and I want y'all brothers to be the ones to carry on that at any time or take it on as your own. So I think that's all I have for my portion. Any questions? We need to say that for later. Silence is compliant. Give me the slow But now what we're going to do, there's no questions. We're going to take a quick break, 2 minutes, and then we're going to go into our next speaker, who will be Mr. Chad Wheatro. So y'all take a quick minute, grab you a drink, water, whatever, chop it up, and then we'll come back to it. 2 minutes.
That's
Yeah, it just started that.
always. He loves